You are at the edge of a lake. It is early morning. The water is still. You crouch to drink, and you see another creature in the water staring back. Its movements match yours. When you tilt your head, it tilts. When you blink, it blinks. For most of your life, this would have meant nothing. You would have drunk and walked away. But something is different today. You stay, you stare, and after long enough, something clicks. That creature in the water is you. You stand up, you look around. The other members of your tribe are doing what they have always done: eating, fighting, mating. None of them have noticed the creature in the water. None of them know what just happened to you. You try to show them. You bring them to the lake. You point. They don't see what you see. After a while, they start to look at you the way they look at a sick animal. This is the oldest story humanity has, the moment the ape became self-aware. And there is a writer who argues the same thing is happening again, right now, to a small number of you. His name is Morg. The book is called The Metaphorical Suicide, A Guide to Hyper-Awareness. It was published in 2015, and almost no one read it. His claim is that almost everything you call your personality was installed by other people before you could say no. And there is a process for tearing that personality out and replacing it with one you actually chose. In this video, 3 things. You will learn how the false self gets built. You will learn the 4-step method for demolishing it. And you will learn the 3 questions that tell you whether yours is real or installed. Ready? Let's do it.
This is an artificially aware original production.
The ape at the lake is the metaphor. Julian Jaynes called it the analog eye, a small mental model of yourself that you can place into imagined scenarios. You build it by age 4. Once you have it, you can plan, you can lie, you can put yourself into the future and ask what happens if I do this. The other animals cannot do that. Morg's claim is that there is one more level up, a level very few people reach. He calls it hyper-awareness. To get there, you need 3 things: an analog eye, an analog all, a working model of how reality is structured, and a foundation made of pure reason instead of inherited belief. Most of you have the first one. A small percentage of you carry the second. Almost none of you have the third, because the third one requires killing the version of yourself you currently call you. That's the metaphorical suicide, not the body, the personality. The personality you carry right now, your morality, your idea of success, your sense of what a good life looks like, what you fear, what you want, what you call yourself, almost none of that was selected by you. It was installed by parents, school, religion, advertising, friends, country, century, language. You did not choose your operating system. You inherited it. And there is a method for uninstalling it. Watch what happens to a 1-year-old in front of a mirror. At 18 months old, half of all human children will recognize the reflection as themselves. By 2 years, about 2/3 will. Before that, they treat the reflection like another child. They wave at it, they reach for it, they look behind the mirror to see where the other kid is hiding. What changes? The mind builds something new, a small internal map of itself. The reflection now has a label attached to it. That is me. This is the analog I. It is not your body. It is not your brain. It is the imagined version of yourself that lives inside your head. The one you place into hypothetical situations to decide what to do. When you wonder what you would say if your boss asked you that question, there it is. When you rehearse a conversation in the shower, there it is. When you replay an argument 3 days later and finally come up with the line you should have used, there it is. Most species do not have one. They live in the present, responding to stimulus. Hungry, find food. Afraid, run. They cannot rehearse. They cannot regret. Once you have the analog I, you can do new things. You can plan. You can wait. You can lie, because to lie you have to imagine what someone else believes and pick the false sentence that will leave them believing the wrong thing. Lying is an extremely complex use of the analog I. 4-year-olds learn it. This is level 2, self-awareness. Most adult humans operate here for the rest of their lives. Level 3 is rarer. At some point, in some minds, a second analog forms. Not a map of yourself, a map of everything, a model of how reality fits together, how your behavior connects to other people's behavior, how an action today produces a consequence in 20 years, how the systems you live inside, economic, biological, linguistic, interlock and feed each other. Morg calls this the analog all, higher consciousness. Some of you have already felt this turn on. There is a moment, usually in your 20s, when the world stops being a collection of separate things and starts being one fabric. You look at your job and your family and your country and your own thoughts and you can see how they wire together. Most people miss this moment. Some of you didn't. But here's the trap. You can have an analog all and still be running on garbage code. You can see the whole picture and still interpret it through inherited beliefs you never examined. That is the third requirement. A rational foundation, not feelings, not the senses, not religion or tradition, or what your parents told you, or what felt true at 14. Reason, applied ruthlessly all the way down until you reach something that cannot be doubted. When all three are present, analog I, analog all, and a foundation of reason, Morg calls that hyper-awareness. The chasm between hyper-awareness and ordinary self-awareness is, in his words, comparable to the chasm between an instinctual animal and a self-aware human. That sounds like an absurd claim. Hold it loosely for now. We are about to look at the mechanism that built your personality, and once you see it, the claim will feel less absurd. Because the version of you reading this, almost all of it, was put there by someone else. Terence McKenna had a line that Morg builds his whole argument on. Culture is not your friend. McKenna's image was that cultures are operating systems. The human body is the hardware. The hardware has barely changed for a very long time. The operating systems change constantly, and at every swap there is screaming and resistance. The operating system you grew up on is just the one your tribe happened to be running when you arrived. If you had been born in a different city or a different century, you would have been a different person. Not slightly different, foundationally different, different morality, different definition of success, different fears, different definition of what counts as a life well lived. That is not philosophy. That is just how this works. A child is curious. The child asks a question, out loud or silently. The child receives an answer from a parent, from a teacher, from a screen, from a priest. The child cannot evaluate the answer. The child has no other framework to compare it against. The child files the answer under how reality works and moves on. By the time you are old enough to notice that your parents were just guessing, that your teachers were repeating what their teachers said, that the priest was working from a book written by people who thought the earth was flat, it is already too late. The foundation is poured. Your new evaluations will be filtered through the foundation you already have. You will think you are thinking. You will be running a program. Morg grew up inside one of these programs. He tells the story. He was raised Christian. His mother had a device on the family television that automatically muted the audio whenever an actor said a swear word. Movies were pre-edited to remove anything offensive to the worldview. He was homeschooled. He attended what he calls Christian brainwashing centers, Jesus camps, where the daily schedule was 15 minutes of Bible study before breakfast, an hour of worship and teaching, 2 more half-hour Bible sessions with his group, another hour of teaching at the chapel, a 45-minute Bible study around the campfire before bed. That was one day. He attended willingly. He was a child. He was, in his own words, terrified of hell. He believed demons could materialize in his bedroom at will. He could not sleep. When he liked things the religion disapproved of, heavy metal, the villains in movies, he felt he was a bad person. When his sexuality started showing up in his teenage years, the guilt was constant. Notice what is being described, not a belief, an infrastructure, a foundation poured into a child too young to evaluate it. By the time he was old enough to question it, the framework was already deciding which questions he could ask. This is the part that matters for you. You were not raised by Morg's mother, but you were raised by someone, and that someone passed an operating system to you that you did not choose. Maybe yours was scientific materialism. Reality is matter. Consciousness is an accident. Life has no inherent meaning, so make some up or distract yourself until you die. Maybe yours was secular consumerism. Get the degree, get the job, get the house, get the partner, run the loop until you stop. Maybe yours was nationalism, or family duty, or whatever your specific corner of the internet has been feeding you for the last 10 years. The content is different. The mechanism is identical. A program was installed in you before you could refuse, and almost everything you call what I believe is that program running. Morg's claim, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, is that most of the operating systems available to a modern person actively block higher awareness. They forbid the questions that would dissolve them. They label doubt as bad, or as a phase, or as edgy, or as immature. They are designed to be self-protecting. They have to be. A program that allows itself to be uninstalled does not survive. So how do you know which parts of you are real and which parts are installed? You don't. Not until you apply a test that doesn't care how you feel about the answer. The test was invented by René Descartes in 1641. Morgue builds the entire metaphorical suicide on it. The method is brutal in its simplicity. Take every belief you currently hold. Examine each one. If you can imagine even a single way the belief could be false, set it aside. Not because you have proven it false, because there is room for doubt. And you are looking for the things that have no room. This is not skepticism for its own sake. It is a triage. You are clearing the basket of beliefs the way Descartes cleared a basket of apples. Turn it upside down, dump everything, then examine each apple individually. Anything with even a hint of rot stays out. Only what is perfectly clean goes back in. What gets temporarily removed? Almost everything. Religion goes, because the specific religion you were given can be doubted. There are thousands of others. They cannot all be true. That you happen to be born into yours is not evidence of its truth. Inherited morality goes, because the things your culture calls obviously right and obviously wrong have looked very different in other centuries and other places. Universal truths that vary by zip code are not universal truths. What feels good goes. Because feelings are not designed to track reality. They are designed to keep an animal alive. Wanting something to be true does not make it true. Feeling that something is true does not make it true. What your senses tell you goes, because the senses can be fooled. You know this. You dream every night. In the dream, you see, hear, touch, taste, feel, without using any of those organs. If your mind can construct an entire universe inside your skull while you sleep, then your senses do not have a privileged line to reality. Descartes goes further. He says, assume there is an evil genius, a demon powerful enough to fabricate every perception you have ever had, including the feeling that there is no demon. Now, with the demon as a live possibility, what can you still be sure of? Morg updates the demon for the present. He calls it the computer-generated reality. Assume you are in a simulation. Assume what you experience as space and time and matter is the output of underlying code. The way the world inside a video game is the output of underlying code. The character inside the game cannot reach the code. No experiment performed inside the game can detect the code, because the experiment is also being rendered by the code. From inside the simulation, you have no way to prove you are not in one. Now, what survives? After everything else has been removed, feelings, senses, religion, morality, science as a worldview, every belief you absorbed before you could refuse, what remains? Descartes' answer is the famous one. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. To be doubting at all, something has to be doing the doubting. So whatever you are, in whatever form you exist. But Morg pushes one step further. What allowed Descartes to even make that argument? Pure reason. The logical structure that lets I doubt, therefore I think be a valid sentence in the first place. You cannot doubt reason itself. Because to try, you would have to use reason to construct the doubt. Reason is the floor. You cannot fall through it. So this is what is left after the metaphorical suicide, a self that exists in some form, and the rules of reason itself. That is the foundation, not feelings, not the senses, not what felt true at 14. Reason. Now with this foundation, you can re-examine each of your old beliefs. If a belief contradicts reason, it is definitely false. If a belief survives, keep it, now consciously, now chosen. The personality you were given dies temporarily. The personality you choose is built back up on a foundation you actually verified. The reason Morg calls this the metaphorical suicide is not theatrical. It is technical. The version of you that you have been calling I, most of that goes away in this process. Your moral certainties, your sense of what life is for, your fears about what other people think, your identity attachments to nation, religion, profession, family role, online tribe, all of it gets pulled out, examined, and most of it does not come back the way it was. For the people who go through this, it is not a metaphor in the soft sense. It is a death. And if you're going to do it, Morg is clear. You should know what is on the other side first. Morg describes one of his own experiences after the foundation had been rebuilt. A psychedelic session, using psychoactive substances he treats throughout the book as tools for what Terence McKenna called boundary dissolution, not recreation. The point is not that the experience reveals truth. Feelings and the senses, on Morg's own argument, do not reveal truth. The point is that it shows you fast that the agreed-upon meaning of daily life is constructed. This is one of those sessions. He was in his apartment. He felt himself shift into the perspective of an outside observer, a being that had never seen a human before. From this perspective, he watched two humans in the room. He could not tell them apart. They were flesh-colored masses with appendages. He could not locate their sense organs or distinguish what was clothing from what was skin. One of them sat down in front of a screen. The screen was outputting colored light arranged in moving patterns. The human had a device strapped to its head, feeding sound waves directly into its auditory organs. The human sat there and consumed these signals while putting other matter into the input orifice on its face, eating. From the outside observer position, none of this made sense. There were no movies, there were no songs, there was no meal. There were only mathematical signals being interpreted by an organism that had been built, over millions of years, to find some signals pleasurable and others unpleasant, and that had then spent its short life arranging itself to maximize the pleasurable ones. Morg describes what hit him. That everything humans build their lives around is a concept resting on another concept, resting on another concept. What is a movie? What is music? What is money? What is love? What is success? Concept. 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 None of these point at anything in the underlying reality. They are agreements. The agreements are stable enough that they feel like real things. They are not real things. And the worst part of the realization was, he was one of these creatures. He went back to his computer and started a movie he had prepared in case the experience overwhelmed him. He shouted, "What is a movie? What the fuck is a movie?" He never watched it. He calls this experience insanity is knowing. The argument is that some forms of clarity feel like madness, because most of what holds your daily life together is a structure of agreed-upon meaning that collapses the moment you look at it from outside. This is what is on the other side of the metaphorical suicide. Not enlightenment in the bumper sticker sense. Not peace. Often the opposite, at first. Plato saw this almost 2,400 years before Morgue. His version is the cave. People are chained inside a cave facing a wall. Behind them is a fire. Between the fire and the wall, objects are moving. The people see only the shadows of the objects on the wall. The shadows are all they have ever known. To them, the shadows are reality. One of them is freed. He turns around, he sees the fire, he sees the objects, he climbs out of the cave. Outside, he sees the sun. Then, and this is the part most people skip, he comes back. He tries to tell the others, but his eyes have adjusted to the sunlight. He can no longer make out the shadows on the wall as well as they can. They notice he has gotten worse at seeing what they see. They conclude that whatever happened to him out there made him stupid. They want nothing to do with him. If they could, they would kill him. This is the cost Morgue is telling you about. The metaphorical suicide does not make your life easier. It makes you harder to relate to. People you used to be close to will stop returning your calls. The conversations that used to satisfy you will start to feel like watching shadows on a wall. You will find yourself alone more often. It is a trade. What you get is a life that is actually yours. The personality you carry will be one you selected. The beliefs you hold will be ones you tested. The goals you pursue will be ones you chose, not ones a program is running through you. The book is honest about this. It is not advertising itself as a self-help upgrade. It is telling you to look in the lake. Before you decide whether to start, run the diagnostic. 3 questions. Answer them honestly. 1. When did you choose your morality, the actual set of things you believe are right and wrong? If the answer is, I didn't, it was just there, that is the installed program speaking. 2. When did you choose your definition of a good life? The picture in your head of what success looks like. The career, the partner, the house, the timeline. If the answer is, everyone around me had a similar picture, that is the installed program speaking. 3. When did you choose what you fear? The specific things that feel intolerable to lose, the specific outcomes you organize your behavior to avoid. If the answer is, I never thought about it, those are just the things people fear, that is the installed program speaking. If you scored 3 out of 3, most of what you call your personality was installed in you before you could refuse. Now the protocol, 4 steps. 1. Pick a single core belief you hold, not a small preference, something foundational. What reality is, what death is, what you should be working toward, what makes a person good. 2. Ask whether the belief can be doubted in any conceivable way. Not whether you want to doubt it, whether it could possibly be false. If yes, set it aside, temporarily. You are not declaring it false. You are putting it in the basket of things that need a real reason to come back. 3. Continue until you reach something that cannot be doubted in any way at all. For most people doing this seriously, the first thing they find is reason itself, the rules of logic, and the fact that something is doing the doubting. 4. From that foundation, examine each set-aside belief one by one. If it contradicts reason, it does not come back. If it survives, it returns. But now you carry it consciously because you chose it. That is the entire method. The ape at the lake did not ask to become self-aware. It happened to him. He could not undo it. He could not go back to being the version of himself that had not yet seen. What Morg is offering you is the second version of that moment, not the one that happens to you, the one you choose. Look in the lake, or don't. There is no neutral position. The personality you have right now is either one you selected or one that was installed in you by people who are no longer around to defend their choices. Here is the question. Of the 3 diagnostic questions, which one did you fail the hardest? Be specific. Drop it in the comments. That is the program with the most grip on you right now.